They said the Golden Fleece was just a myth, guarded by monsters, hidden beyond the edge of the world. But one man gathered heroes, defied the gods, and sailed into legend. This was Jason. In the ancient Greek city of Iolcus, where the stone walls of palaces gleamed, beneath the Mediterranean sun and the scent of sea salt mingled with the perfume of wildflowers, a noble prince named Aeson sat upon the throne. He was a just man, with dark hair and kind eyes, beloved by his people. But his half-brother Peleus, ambitious and ruthless, with disheveled grey hair, a long beard, and eyes burning with jealousy and rage, stole the crown through deceit and a dark conspiracy. With the help of hidden mercenaries, Peleus imprisoned Aeson and declared that the gods themselves had chosen him to rule. Aeson, who had a newborn son named Jason, a baby with shining blue eyes and a cry that sounded like a call for justice, knew Peleus would destroy every heir to secure his throne. That night, under a sky filled with stars, Alcimede, Jason's brave mother with long brown hair and a heart overflowing with maternal love, wrapped her infant in a soft cloth and fled the palace. She slipped through the dark, twisting alleys of the city, hid from Peleus's guards, and escaped to the misty, remote mountains of Pelion. There, she entrusted the child to the wise centaur Chiron, a creature half man, half horse, with a powerful body covered in brown fur, a long white beard, and endless knowledge of nature and the gods. Chiron raised Jason in cool caves filled with medicinal herbs, teaching him to wield the sword and spear, to hunt wild beasts in the deep forests, and to understand the divine wisdom of oracles and the laws of nature. Years passed. Jason grew into a strong young man with wavy golden hair, sculpted muscles, and eyes full of fire and determination, unaware of the dark destiny awaiting him, yet driven by an unshakable sense that his fate lay in his father's kingdom. Peleus, now king, ruled from a grand palace with marble columns and carpets woven in gold. Yet he lived in constant fear of the Oracle of Delphi. Many times he had traveled to the sacred temple, where clouds of incense filled the air and whispers echoed through the marble halls. There the oracle, a middle-aged woman with a trembling voice and closed eyes, speaking under the trance of divine vapors, gave him a chilling prophecy. Beware the man who wears only one sandal. He will take your crown and bring your downfall. At first, Peleus laughed and dismissed the prophecy as nonsense, but the seed of fear took root in his heart. Fate, however, does not joke. Jason, now 20 years old and burning with youthful courage, decided to return to Iolcus to reclaim his birthright. He descended from Mount Pelion, crossed dense forests, and reached a roaring river whose cold, clear waters rushed with fury. There he met an old woman, weak, gray-haired, and dressed in rags, who asked for help to cross the river. She was, in truth, Hera, queen of the gods in disguise, who hated Peleus and secretly protected Jason. Jason, kind-hearted and noble, lifted her onto his shoulders and carried her through the muddy, turbulent waters. But as he reached the far bank, one of his wooden sandals was lost to the current. When he entered the gates of Iolcus, the townspeople stared in astonishment and whispered among themselves about the stranger wearing only one sandal. Jason walked straight into the grand hall of the palace, beneath painted ceilings and flickering torches, and declared, "I am Jason, son of Aeson. I have come to reclaim my crown and restore justice." Peleus, seated upon his golden throne, turned pale. His eyes widened in fear, but he quickly masked it with a cunning smile. "Prove yourself worthy, young man," he said slyly. Peleus, too fearful to kill Jason outright, knowing such an act might bring divine wrath, devised a cruel plan. "If you are truly worthy of a crown," he said, "bring me the Golden Fleece from the distant land of Colchis, the sacred wool of a golden ram, guarded by the gods themselves and symbol of eternal power." Jason, his heart pounding with excitement and resolve, accepted the challenge, though he knew many heroes had perished in quests such as this. The Golden Fleece, shining symbol of immortality, was kept in a sacred grove, guarded by an ever-wakeful dragon. Colchis lay far to the east, beyond the stormy waters of the Black Sea, a realm full of unknown perils. But Jason was not alone. Hera, still despising Peleus, secretly guided and inspired him. Jason journeyed across Greece from Athens to Sparta, gathering the greatest heroes of the age. Heracles with his iron club and unbreakable strength. Orpheus, whose magical lyre could calm even beasts. Atalanta, the swift huntress. The twin warriors Castor and Pollux, and many others from across the Hellenic world. They called themselves the Argonauts, in honor of their ship the Argo, crafted by the goddess Athena herself from sacred wood, cut from the trees of Mount Pelion. It was a mighty vessel with 50 oars, a white sail, and a wide deck that could even speak, enchanted by Athena's divine wisdom. Standing before his gathered crew on the sunlit shore, Jason raised his sword and cried, "Together we will make the impossible possible." The ship Argo, with its 50 sturdy wooden oars and a gleaming white sail that shimmered beneath the Mediterranean winds, was launched from the sandy shores of Olympus. Jason stood proudly at the prow, his golden hair tousled by the sea breeze, a gleaming sword in hand, and shouted, "For glory and the Golden Fleece, the gods are with us." The divine winds, especially those of Poseidon, lord of the seas, carried the ship forward, cutting through the blue waves of the Aegean. Their first stop was the island of Lemnos, where all the men had been slain by their wives under the curse of Aphrodite, goddess of love. Only women remained, ruling the island in solitude. Queen Hypsipyle, a beautiful woman with long black hair, emerald eyes, and a gown of crimson silk, was captivated by Jason's presence. She welcomed the Argonauts with feasts of fresh fruits, sweet wine, and dances under the stars. Weeks passed in celebration. Laughter, music, and whispers of passion filled the island's warm nights. Jason fathered twin sons with the queen, who would one day become heroes themselves. But Heracles, angered by the delay, roared in his thunderous voice, "We waste precious time. The quest does not wait." Reluctantly, Jason ordered the sails raised. The Argo departed, carrying with it bittersweet memories of love and temptation, while the women of Lemnos watched from the shore, weeping as the ship vanished into the horizon. After leaving Lemnos, the Argo reached the land of the Dolians, where King Cyzicus, a kind middle-aged ruler with a grey beard and royal robes, welcomed the heroes warmly. He hosted a feast, tables laden with roasted meat, fresh bread, and ripe fruits, but warned them of Mount Bear, home of the six-armed giants known as the Gagains, monstrous beings who hurled boulders with terrifying strength. Curious and overconfident, the Argonauts ventured toward the mountain, and soon shadows loomed. The Gagains appeared, towering creatures with 6 mighty arms like ancient tree trunks, skin like stone, and eyes glowing with crimson fury. Heracles fought at the forefront, swinging his iron club with godlike strength. One by one the giants fell. Their green, tar-like blood soaked the earth as their dying roars echoed through the mountain. Though victorious, the heroes were battered and bloodied when night fell. A fierce storm struck, rain poured, winds howled, and the waves drove them back to the same shore they had left. In the darkness, confusion and fear took hold. Mistaking the Dolians for enemies, the Argonauts attacked. Swords clashed, screams filled the night, and when dawn broke, the horror was revealed. King Cyzicus lay dead, his body covered in deep wounds. Jason wept bitterly, his heart heavy with guilt. They held a solemn funeral. Pyres burned high into the heavens. Orpheus sang songs of mourning, and offerings were made to the gods so the king's soul might find peace. After the tragedy of the Dolians, the Argo reached Thrace, home of Phineus, an old blind seer with disheveled white hair and a frail body. He had been cursed by Zeus for revealing the secrets of the gods, tormented endlessly by the Harpies, monstrous bird women with hideous faces and dark wings. Each time Phineus tried to eat, the harpies would swoop down, stealing his food and leaving behind only filth and stench. Jason's heart ached at the sight of the starving old man. With compassion burning in his chest, he ordered his comrades to help. The winged twins, Calais and Zetes, sons of the north wind, took flight, chasing the harpies across the skies, shooting arrows of silver until the monsters fled and never returned. Grateful and trembling, Phineus revealed a vital secret, the only way to pass the clashing rocks. Symplegades, the deadly gates of the sea that crushed anything caught between them. He whispered, "Release a white dove first. If it passes, you may follow. But if it is crushed, turn back, for death awaits." Jason clasped the old man's hands, offered him warm food, and promised his suffering would be remembered. Then under the cool Thracian winds, the Argo once again sailed onward, toward the next peril that awaited, beyond the shifting rocks and the edge of the known world. The colossal Symplegades, twin cliffs of doom, stood at the entrance to the Black Sea, like the jaws of a monstrous sea creature, crashing together with thunderous fury. The surrounding waves boiled in chaos, and the echo of the stones, colliding, rolled across the sky like the wrath of Zeus himself. Following Phineus's prophecy, Jason released a white dove with gleaming feathers. It darted forward with desperate speed, and just as the rocks slammed together, only a few tail feathers were torn away. "Row with all your strength," Jason shouted. The Argonauts bent their backs, muscles straining, sweat pouring from their brows as the Argo surged ahead. The waves roared, timbers creaked, and in a heartbeat the ship shot between the cliffs. The stones crashed behind them, splintering the stern, but the Argo survived. As they emerged into calm waters, the rocks froze forever, never to move again. A mighty cheer rose from the crew. They embraced one another, shouting in triumph, for they had conquered the gates of death and entered the mysterious Black Sea, where cold northern winds brushed their faces and uncharted horizons awaited. After a long voyage across the shadowy Black Sea, beneath grey skies and restless waves, the Argo reached Colchis, a strange and distant land of misty mountains, lush forests and golden rivers. Its people wore robes of vivid eastern colors, and in the heart of the city stood the palace of King Aetes, a mighty ruler with a long golden beard, sharp eyes, and a jeweled crown that shimmered like fire. The Golden Fleece, sacred and radiant, hung within a walled garden guarded by divine enchantments. Jason, flanked by the Argonauts, stepped into the royal hall and declared, "Grant me the fleece, for I am the rightful heir, and this is the will of the gods." Aetes laughed, his voice echoing coldly through the marble chamber. "If you truly seek it, prove your worth. Complete 3 impossible tasks. Plow the great field with my fire-breathing bulls. Sow the dragon's teeth, from which an army of warriors shall rise. And finally, slay the ever-wakeful dragon, whose scales are harder than bronze." Jason's heart sank, yet the gods had already moved the threads of fate. Hera and Aphrodite, working in secret, kindled a forbidden love within Medea, the king's daughter, a sorceress of haunting beauty, with fiery red hair, emerald eyes, and a flowing gown of midnight silk. That night, beneath the silver moonlight, Medea entered Jason's tent. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "With my help you will triumph, for my love for you is endless." Tears shimmered in her eyes, and destiny took its breath. Torn between love and betrayal of her own father, Medea prepared a magic ointment, a mixture of rare herbs and the blood of sacred beasts. She spoke softly, her voice filled with both fear and tenderness. "This salve will make your skin as strong as steel. When the warriors of the dragon's teeth rise, cast a stone among them. They will turn their blades upon each other. And for the dragon, I have a potion brewed from enchanted roots to lull it to sleep." Jason embraced her, their hearts pounding as one. He kissed her under the scent of mystical herbs and vowed to marry her once the quest was done. At dawn, beneath the blazing sun of Colchis, Jason faced the field of doom. The bronze bulls, snorting fire with eyes of molten red, charged forward. but the magic salve shielded him from their flames. With tremendous strength, he plowed the field, then sowed the dragon's teeth deep into the earth. Moments later, armored warriors burst from the soil, skeleton soldiers with empty eyes and swords gleaming with death. They surrounded Jason, but he hurled a massive stone among them. In confusion, they turned on one another. Blades clashed. The sound of metal upon metal filled the air, until at last the field fell silent, littered with the remains of the cursed army. Jason stood victorious, but his destiny with Medea, forged in love and betrayal, had only just begun. After completing the impossible tasks, night fell over Colchis. With Medea's potion, a green, foul-smelling elixir, Jason lulled the giant dragon to sleep. The creature's glowing red eyes dimmed, its powerful tail coiled in exhaustion, and its thunderous breath slowed to a rumbling snore. The Golden Fleece, radiant as the midday sun and soft as woven silk, hung from the sacred oak. Jason lifted it carefully, its golden light illuminating his face, and fled with Medea and the Argonauts toward their ship. But King Aeetes, enraged by his daughter's betrayal, launched a furious pursuit with a fleet of warships cutting through the waves. To delay him, Medea did the unthinkable. She slew her younger brother. Apsyrtus dismembered his body and scattered the pieces into the sea so her father would stop to gather and bury them. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Forgive me." It was a terrible act, born of desperate love. The angry winds of Zeus roared across the sea. Towering waves battered the Argo, but under Hera's divine protection, they survived, sailing onward toward Greece and the promise of redemption. After their escape, the enchanted ship, Argo, now blessed by Athena to speak and warn its crew, guided them toward the island of Circe, the powerful sorceress and Medea's aunt. The island shimmered with strange beauty, forests alive with the cries of animals that had once been human, transformed by Circe's magic. Circe herself appeared, graceful and commanding, with flowing black hair and eyes that pierced the soul. In a solemn ritual of purification, she cleansed Jason and Medea from the blood guilt of Apsyrtus. Fragrant herbs burned, silver smoke coiled in the night air, and Circe's chants rose like whispers of the gods, releasing the burden of their crime. Sailing onward, they reached the domain of the Sirens, monstrous bird women whose bewitching voices lured sailors to their doom on the jagged rocks. But Orpheus, the divine musician, lifted his golden lyre and played a melody so pure, so full of sorrow and beauty, that even the waves seemed to pause. The Argonauts, with wax sealing their ears, rode past as the Sirens screamed in jealousy, tearing at their own feathers. The Argo glided safely beyond their deadly song. Upon reaching Crete, the heroes faced Talos, a bronze giant forged by Hephaestus himself, immortal, gleaming, and as tall as the ancient trees. He circled the island ceaselessly, hurling massive stones that fell like meteors, shaking the sea and sky. Medea, her eyes glowing with dark magic, chanted an incantation that clouded the giant's mind. In a trance, Talos stumbled, and she drew out the bronze nail from his heel, his single point of weakness. From the wound, golden ichor, the blood of the gods, poured out like a molten river. With a final roar that echoed across the heavens, Talos fell, his colossal body crashing to the earth, shaking the island to its core. Victorious, the Argonauts raised their oars and sails, the warm winds of triumph filling them as they journeyed home toward Iolcus, the Golden Fleece glittering beneath the dawn light, a symbol of their divine triumph and mortal cost. After long months upon the sea, the Argo finally returned to Iolcus. Jason entered the palace, holding the radiant Golden Fleece high before King Peleus. "I have fulfilled the quest," he declared. "Now give me the throne that is rightfully mine." Old Aeson, Jason's father, frail and bent with age, could barely stand. Out of love and gratitude, Medea prepared a cauldron of boiling water, herbs and mystical roots. As she chanted ancient words, she cut Aeson's wrist, letting his blood flow into the brew. Moments later, he emerged young again, strong and renewed, his silver hair turned black like a raven's wing. The daughters of Peleus, dazzled and envious, begged Medea to do the same for their father. Smiling darkly, she agreed. That night, they cut Peleus into pieces and cast them into the cauldron, but Medea added no magic herbs. The water hissed, the flesh burned, and the tyrant died in torment, his screams echoing through the palace. Jason claimed the crown, and the people of Iolcus rejoiced, but vengeance brewed again. Peleus' son, Acastus, enraged by his father's murder, drove Jason and Medea into exile to prevent further bloodshed. In exile, Jason and Medea settled in Corinth, a prosperous city filled with bustling markets and marble palaces. But Jason, now hungry for power and political favor, betrayed her. He turned away from the woman who had saved his life and promised to marry Glauce, the young and beautiful daughter of King Creon. Her golden hair gleamed in the sunlight. Her gown shimmered like silk spun by the gods. Heartbroken and consumed by fury, Medea wept bitter tears, then her grief hardened into vengeance. With trembling hands, she wove a gown laced with poisonous herbs, fragrant yet deadly, and sent it to Glauce as a gift of peace. The moment the girl put it on, flames erupted from her skin. Her beauty turned to ash, and her screams filled the royal halls. King Creon rushed to her aid and was consumed by the same fire, dying in her arms. Then came Medea's most tragic act, to protect her children from vengeance and to wound Jason's soul forever. She killed her 2 young sons, their golden hair glinting in the firelight. The sound of her sobs mingled with their cries as she fulfilled her dark destiny. As Jason arrived, too late to save them, Medea rose into the sky upon a chariot of fire, drawn by dragons and sent by Helios, her grandfather, the sun god. From the heavens, she looked down once, her face cold as marble, and vanished into the horizon toward Athens, leaving Jason broken and alone. Years passed. Stripped of love, power, and divine favor, Jason returned to Iolcus. Even Hera, once his divine protector, had turned away from him, her blessing withdrawn. With his son Thessalus, he tried to reclaim his throne, but his heart was weary and his spirit hollow. One evening, he sat beside the decaying remains of the Argo, now forgotten and rotting upon the shore, the once great ship that had carried his glory. As he lay beneath its shadow, lost in memories of adventure and betrayal, a beam of wood, loosened by time and age, broke free and fell upon him. The hero of the Golden Fleece died silently, crushed beneath the vessel that had made his name immortal. The waves washed against the shore, carrying whispers of his legend into eternity. Thus ended the tale of Jason, a hero undone not by monsters or gods, but by the fragility of the human heart, a reminder that courage and love, when twisted by pride and betrayal, can destroy even the greatest of men. The voyage of Jason still sails across time, a journey of glory, betrayal, and impossible dreams. If his quest stirred your soul, drop a like and comment as your own mark of courage, and subscribe to Sail with Legends.